Jon, thank you so much for grabbing some time with me today. I have Jon Barcellos with me from Postal. I know you work with the strategic accounts there. Today, we're going to talk a lot about virtual selling, but tell me about yourself and your role and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amanda. So I've actually been, I think I was hired somewhere between 10 and 15 for the company a little over a year ago as we were just getting a product into a beta
Awesome.
standpoint. And then from there, actually in January, I made the move into working with our existing client base and kind of making sure from the onboarding perspective through retention, like that we're doing all of those motions, in the most streamlined way. And when it comes into the virtual selling space, it's really interesting for us. We're an experience-based platform. What I mean by that is we have to do with gifting, and maybe the original idea of us was actually even in just direct mail, something as simple as direct mail, right? And of course, 2020 had other plans for so many of us and so many of our industries as well. And here we are actually as an experience marketing and sales engagement tool.
Awesome. Cool. I'm really excited to talk with you about virtual selling. Obviously, it's what I do all day long and I love it. But I think it's been kind of a hard shift for organizations and sellers that are used to more face-to-face selling. And, I talk to so many people that are talking to other sellers all day long too, that, who's to say Amanda's face is going to stand out or that Jon's face is going to stand out when they're talking to a million people. So I really try to find ways to stand out in the sales process. That's why we got introduced, because we've been starting to incorporate gifting into our sales process. But tell me, from your opinion and your experience, what are some of the things from remote selling that are here to stay that are awesome?
Yeah, I mean, I'd preface it with you're going to be hard pressed to find anybody in sales or marketing that is missing, those conferences more than me. I loved that. I loved the face-to-face time with people. I come from a big Italian family. We're all huggy too, right? So that's kind of like part of that psychology changes for you in the virtual space. Things that I've seen working incredibly well, though, are when we treat this like this isn't the new normal. Now this is just normal. This is the way it goes. And the minute that we can ourselves psychologically get over that hurdle, that's huge. That's big step number one, I think. Things that have been working incredibly well, I think, is that pattern interrupt. One of the most important things about virtual selling is having a differentiator, to your point of like, how do I make sure my face stands out? I think that comes from being authentically you. Number one, right? That's like, you gotta be genuine. You can't, the minute somebody thinks you're trying to take advantage of a situation or anything like that, it's gonna feel weird. It's an instant turn off too. And I think people are a lot more sensitive to that. Inboxes are also a lot more full. So the way that we reach out needs to be content driven. I personally believe, I think it needs to come from a value add, and maybe there's a laugh about it as well. One of the items that I have really, really enjoyed sending, I actually sent you one, the Damn It doll. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on the show. Yep, there it is. I personally love them, mainly because it gets a laugh, number one, and it's also a little bit reflexive of my personality as a seller. But I truly do think that we're in a frustrating time. So not only does it get you to laugh, but it's also like, it's relative, right? Like you can relate to it.
Yeah, I tend to send Amazon and Target gift cards because that reflects my personality. So I mean, I talk with a lot of women. I know they appreciate it, and it's been really helpful for us just to, like I mentioned, stand out and just be a little more thoughtful. And one of the things I think with virtual selling that is actually really good is that buyers aren't limited to their geography anymore. You can actually find the best solution if you're willing to kind of go outside of your comfort zone a little bit, and research, what companies can actually do for you, not just where they are. And I love that. But kind of, with the good, there's bad too. Like, do you think that there's anything like negative that comes from all this virtual selling?
Personally, I don't. I think that if somebody is able to find negative in that may be somebody who finds negative in almost anything in life. And that's no judgment. I mean, if somebody wants to write me a message about this, I'm all open to. I've been wrong once in my life, right? So that's a joke. I mean, I've definitely been wrong more than once. My wife would definitely back me up on that one.
Just about that.
Yeah. But I think, all jokes aside, I think that it's all about mindset when it comes to that, like for the seller themselves. And if you're somebody who knows that, at the end of the day, the sun's going to go down, and tomorrow morning the sun's coming up. Like that's that's something good to keep perspective on everything.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it earlier, like I certainly miss face-to-face interactions, and expos and events and things like that. I think those will, when we get back to a different, like you said, this is the new normal. I think selling will continue to be this way, but I do think we're still going, like, eventually go back to expos and events, and I cannot wait. Like, I get very energized from those things. Like I go to inbound. I cannot wait to go back to inbound and real life. Right. So things like that, I think we miss that. But on the other hand, I really like the virtual sales. I think it's super fun. But talking about that, and obviously we've talked so much about how people can stand out and or that people need to stand out, if they need to show up and they need to be authentic. What are some of the things you've seen be successful for sellers to stand out and to be remembered in this virtual sales process?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's definitely looking at this from a full funnel perspective. And this is kind of how we approach it here at Postal. We know that our tool works in 3 very good places of a sales process. And if we we're going to break those up, we've got, we want to drive MQLs. So we've got something like a magic link, which actually for us, we did some studies, it performed better than social media advertising. In pure cold outreach, using a link to say, hey, download our ebook, we're going to give you a $10 gift card. We ran that with a couple different things. Our cost per lead was substantially less than it was like cost per click, right? That's so awesome. there was one way that we were able to see some benefits of using our own tool for that. Also with our own tool, like using it within the sales process to deepen a relationship or maybe strengthen a relationship, getting to the close a little bit faster. Of course, numbers have changed for everybody, but at the same time, we still have to meet our minimums. That way our companies can survive. So anything we can do to accelerate that deal cycle time, we found that gifting actually helps with that. Even an experience, maybe hosting an event for all of the stakeholders that you have, and maybe a handful of deals together. Invite them to a wine tasting. Mm-hmm. When it comes to looking at like that renewal process, I think that's huge within sales, because it's that reciprocal business that actually really benefits us quite well. That's where it's important to build those relationships. That's why you send somebody something like the Damn It doll, because you're like, hey, I do the same job. We get just as frustrated. I know you'll vibe with this, that type of thing. Right. And as soon as we have those connections with our buyers, I think it becomes a lot more human. And that's really that's the secret sauce, I think.
I love what you said too about like download the ebook and we'll give you $10, because like our rule of thumb is if you're going to ask somebody for their email address, you better give them value worth $20. Like people are not going to give you their email address for less than $20. So if you're if you can find a way to give them value right away, even if it's an ebook and a gift, like that is, like you said, it builds that reciprocity and really it creates good vibes. It makes people want to buy from you for sure. Okay, here's one last question. Okay. If you could give advice to sellers and also relationship managers, because a lot of that is sales too. For our now normal, not new normal, but our now normal. What advice did you give them?
Oh man, don't stop, I think, is number one. Continue to define your true north, as it were. And I think that this even maybe gets like a little bit more ethereal than originally thought about for a lot of people too. I think that we need to make sure that we're cool and we're centered ourselves. Then we can actually sell our product with more integrity and in a more efficient way.
Yep, 100%. I love that. Yeah, don't stop. Like when the pandemic first hit, I remember a lot of sellers, and I even remember myself feeling like I don't want to ask like my leads or even my accounts to spend more money because like everybody's so tight. But I remember someone saying like that was almost selfish because businesses still need your service. And so like don't be nosy, don't be interruptive or disruptive, but be there when they need you and like be willing to take their money. Like don't be selfish and hold your services to yourself. And I don't know, I thought that was pretty powerful.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'd agree. And I think a lot of those initial conversations that a lot of us had, mid-March to maybe early May, they were tough,
Oh, for
because
sure.
not only were we as the sellers maybe going into it with some of that, I don't want to call it intimidation, but there's a trepidation, maybe it would be
Yeah,
a better word for it. And then, we also don't know what's happening on the other end of the line. But I
for
think that
sure.
it kind of equates back into everything that I was saying earlier too. Like, that's why it's important to be human. And it's okay to be like, hey, listen, I know that sucked. Like, that's okay. We can
Oh,
agree
for
that
sure.
that sucked if it comes up,
Yeah,
and I think that's what's changed a lot about virtual selling moving forward. I think that there's a radical candor that people will embrace quite a bit more.
I 100% agree. This has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and chatting with me today, John. I hope that we can do it again in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I'm looking forward to it.
We'll talk to you later.
All right, see ya.